initiative from Indica Yoga, Yogi Insights, which is happening every Friday at 6 to 7 p.m., where people from across the world who are yoga luminaries are coming and sharing their ideas and presenting various understanding about yoga and other dimensions from yoga, Ayurveda, and other life science. So today we have another interesting session. So I welcome you all who have been joining from various places across the globe. Before I officially hand over the session, I invite you all to join for a prayer. Then we will begin the session. So we'll start with a small prayer. Sahana Bhavatu. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste once again. I take this opportunity to welcome you, all of you. I also take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Vinay Chandra Banavatiji, the director of Indica Yoga, to welcome the today's speaker and also share a few words about today's event. Namaste Vinayaji, welcome to today's session and warm greetings to you.
Namaste. Thank you, Datta, for a wonderful introduction to the session and also this whole series that we have started recently on behalf of Indica Yoga, called as Yogin Sites. Yogin is the word that comes from Sanskrit, which means one who is established in yoga. While that is the aspiration, of course, we also extend the definition further to involve everyone who is desirous to attain that state as well. One who has already attained and one who is seriously committed to attain such a state is also yogin in the larger context of the term and its meaning. So in that background, yogin sites, so experts, scholars, practitioners, committed people are invited to this platform to share their insights, whether it's on the theory, on the philosophy, or on the practice aspect, and help build a larger community of seekers is the intention behind this new series that we have started. And these sessions run every Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. India time. This is one of the various other offerings of Indica Yoga, where we have festivals like global festivals of yoga, which we ran both last years for about 40 days or 30 days. And then we have retreats happening now. Then we have various online courses, conferences, so on and so forth. Through all our activities, we intend to curate experiences, yoga experiences, which are authentic, immersive, and transformative. Keeping this in mind, we are now focusing more on residential retreats, and every month we have at least one new offering going on. In the month of April itself, we have a program on called as Prayog, which means a deep immersion into the Vedantic texts. So similarly, we are choosing different areas and having an immersive experiences, retreats, which allow us, the participant, to spend substantial time with a teacher, with a guru, with a senior practitioner, and learn through his presence, not only through his or her teachings, but also along with their presence. So that is the idea behind the retreats. So these are the various kinds of offerings. And coming back to Yogin Sites today, we have a distinguished teacher among us, Shailaja Menon. Shailaja ji, request you to kindly join us. Swagatam.
Namaste.
Namaste. So Shailaja Menon has been a good friend of Indica Yoga. We have had a couple of events along with her. She was one of our teachers through the last year's Global Festival of Yoga. And I'm happy to invite her and introduce her on this occasion. Shailaja Menon is an author, certified integral yoga teacher, 500-hour Manasa yoga teacher, TV host, and a speaker. She grew up in Coimbatore, India, but for last 25 years, more than 2 decades, she has been in Malaysia and she has been a teacher there. And especially through her institution or a center called Mat and Beyond Yoga Studio. I think this is very important to have a name of the center in this manner, clearly positioning the purpose of yoga, something that is not limited to the mat, but goes much beyond and further than that. That's why she has called it as Mat and Beyond Yoga Studio. She also has hosted Yoga Shakti, a TV series on Ananda TV based in the UK with audiences in Europe and North America. She also conducts online asana and pranayama and dhyana classes for students across Europe and USA. She is regularly invited to speak at educational institutions, organizations, yoga centers, and events both in Malaysia, India, and elsewhere as well. She is a passionate advocate of mental wellness through yoga, and keeping this in mind, she has curated a number of sessions through her online programs, focusing and inviting very senior scholars from India and also from abroad, and focus highlighting on the importance or the contribution of yoga in uh, bringing about greater control of one's own mind and also having acquiring wellness in its true sense, not just from the surface, but from the inside out perspective. So that has been her focus and work for last few years. And today she'll be speaking on a very important topic of the Yoga Sutras. No doubt there are so many aspects of the Yoga Sutra, but if there is one element which you can say connects to the depth psychology, as we call in the modern psychology, I think that's the aspect of the Kleshas. And today she'll be presenting various aspects of the Kleshas through an explorative journey, calling it as exploration of the Kleshas in the Yoga Sutras. With this brief introduction and background, may I now request Shailaja to kindly lead us further from this point onwards. Over to you, Shailaja ji. And before I hand it over, I once again welcome all our friends and participants who have joined us from across the world. Kindly make most of this session. If you have any questions, kindly type them out in the chat box or in the Q&A box, which we will be presenting to her at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you for that very wonderful introduction. And first of all, namaste everyone. And I want to say my thank yous first. I would not be here if not for the wonderful, gracious invitation extended by the Indica Yoga team. And I am especially grateful to Shri Harikiranji as well as Shri Vinay Chandraji for offering me this wonderful platform to share my love for yoga. So like Vinay Chandraji said, the last time I actually did a class, a practical session at the Global Yoga Festival. And this time I'm given the opportunity to speak on philosophy, which is again something I'm very deeply passionate about. So to begin with, continuing on that thank you, I cannot begin unless I thank my teachers as well who have brought me to this point. So very briefly, I would just like to thank my teacher, Mataji Divyananda from Integral Yoga, who actually introduced me to yoga some 22 years ago when it was really not even such a big part of my vocabulary. She encouraged me to be a teacher. And then for the last 18 years, my teacher here in Malaysia, Manoj Kaimal, who truly solidified my understanding of the practice and transformed the yoga practice or even an asana practice into a truly experiential practice by involving and embellishing the asanas with the highest philosophy, making it such a wonderful elevated practice. And also now through the COVID period, my exposure to Dr. Ananda Balyogi Bhavnani, who I'm always inspired by with his seemingly endless knowledge, as well as his generosity in sharing his teachings with everyone. So I'm very blessed with the teachers who have come my way, and I continue to grow through all of them. Now, I have to also offer my gratitude to the teacher of teachers, Maharishi Patanjali, without who I wouldn't be talking about Yoga Sutras or the Kleshas. So I just begin with a small prayer. I begin with the Om, and then I just offer a small prayer. Yogena chittasya padena vacha malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram munina patanjalim pranjali pranatosmi. So I begin my presentation. I just start the slide share, and I hope all of you will be able to see it. Is it visible? I hope it's visible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, so this is just the opening. Yeah, so I just wanted to begin with easy slide, right? Because this is truly the predicament of yoga practice today and yoga practitioners today. Because while yoga has so much philosophy with it, in most parts of the world, it has become like a stretch practice. Yeah, it's just a synonym for exercise. And for most people, like the question says, is it a relaxing pastime? Is it a spiritual path, extreme sport? So a lot of confusion about all of this. And then even when we do the practice, like this is supposedly the Virabhadrasana to the warrior position, but like you see the warrior pose, right? Because that's how the mind is when we're doing the asana. And I'm sure it's, we all can relate to this, because I think when we start off, we are all like this, right? Am I doing this right? Is everyone looking at me? All kinds of questions come to the mind. So this is how we all start off, and this is how the state of yoga is in most parts. And then if we have the grace, I truly call it grace, we end up with great teachers who introduce us to the greatest of teachers, who is Maharishi Patanjali and the Yoga Sutras. So I'm just going a little bit into it, because I'm not sure, how many people have the exposure. So Maharishi Patanjali was the person who, though he's popularly known as the father of yoga, it's he actually codified the yoga. Yeah, so the yoga darshanam, or the perspective of yoga, he codified it into 196 very terse aphorisms. Yeah, and so they say, like how the beads of a necklace are strung together. Similarly, these sutras are strung together to create this beautiful, yoga sutra philosophy, which talks and delves deeply both into the human predicament as well as the highest human possibility, yeah, the ability to attain kaivalya. So he gives us the path towards that as well. So for many people, he is really called the master psychologist. So we begin with dukkha. Yeah. So why do we even go into all of these practices? Because somehow the life that we lead does not make us so happy. Yeah. We all suffer in various ways. So in the sutras itself, in the second chapter, Maharishi Patanjali gives us the different ways, yeah, that we suffer. So he classifies it into parinama, tapa, and samskara. And then he says the wise, even the wise person, yeah, the wise person knows that everything is suffering. Yeah, dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha. So these three different kinds of suffering. So maybe we think we're not suffering, but I'll just briefly go through all these different ways, and then we can see whether any of this applies to us. Yeah. So I'll just start with tapa. Tapa dukkha is some direct experience of pain. yeah, which is quite easy to understand, right? If somebody punches us in the stomach, or we have a very sharp headache, right? That's a direct experience of pain. Parinama dukkha, on the other hand, is a kind of pain related to insecurity, right? The understanding that everything is constantly changing. Yeah, so though at this point we may be quite happy, we may have a great job, we may have a great relationship, we may have, no financial problems, but somewhere underlying all of this, there is a knowledge that we understand the fragility of all of this. Yeah, and we know that all of this can change in 1 second or less than that. Yeah, so there is so even if we're happy today, we know that this is going to end, and we're trying to grasp and cling on to that same kind of happiness. So the understanding that our lives are lived like that drop of water on a lotus leaf. Yeah, that is how fragile our lives are, and that is how easily, right, we understand that things can change, because of which it keeps us constantly insecure, right? And samskara dukkha is very interesting. Like, samskaras are our patterns. Yeah. So, in fact, that's a very fascinating topic as well. If we look at ourselves, we understand that all of our life is actually built on patterns. Yeah. So initially we create a pattern, and then after that we get caught by the pattern. It keeps us stuck, and we suffer because of that. Simple thing is, like, when we wake up in the morning, right? We need our coffee. Now, our coffee has to be a certain brand. It has to be a certain temperature. The milk we use has to be a certain brand. Otherwise, we don't like the taste of the coffee. All of this is demanded, right? So unless we satisfy that demand, that samskara is really going to cause us to suffer. Can you imagine waking up and not having your coffee, or having cold coffee, right? That messes up our day already. So this is just a simple example of waking up in the morning. But then if we see throughout the day, we are ruled by our patterns. Yeah, and all the time we are trying to satisfy these patterns, right? So that they are not bothering us. So even a simple thing like when we enter the car, right? First thing is the music has to be right. We have to get the right channel. The aircon has to work. Now, if the aircon doesn't work, can you imagine that? So understanding that our patterns actually hold us in our grip. Yeah, and we become a slave to the pattern, and our whole life is spent satisfying these patterns. Yeah, so that is the samskara dukkha that we face. Yeah, so to know that as we become wiser, we understand that everything is suffering. So what can we do about it? Are we like doomed to just suffer our whole life and to suffer every lifetime? Is this what, Maharishi Patanjali is telling us? Is there nothing we can do about it? So in this very, very important sutra, 2.16, he says, Heyam Dukkham Anagatam. Yeah, where we have the capacity today, right, by doing the right thing today, to prevent suffering that can arise in the future. Yeah, so this is such an important sutra, yeah, because it shows us that by being conscious, by living consciously, by being mindful of our day-to-day, moment-to-moment choices, we have the capacity to prevent future suffering. Yeah, so easy example, like food is always a very easy example. Yeah, so if we don't want to, struggle with our weight, and we don't want to struggle with all the other issues that come up because of weight, obesity, blood sugar, right? All of that. Then today we can make our diet good. Yeah, we can have a healthy, we can adopt a healthy diet, we can adopt a healthy lifestyle and exercise, right? All of that we can do today. But it has to be conscious, right? And we can prevent our suffering that could arise in the future because of complete or dismal attention to our lifestyle. So this very beautiful and very, very important sutra, which the encouragement is to be conscious today, yeah, of the choices that we make. Now, just a note on dukkha. We have to know also that whether we suffer or whether we not suffer, all of it boils down to our darshanam, yeah, our perspective, the way we view life and the way we view situations that arise in our life. Yeah, so those of you who hear me regularly would have heard this example before, but it is a very effective example, which is why I keep using it. Now, the same situation can arise in life. Yeah, say suppose a person loses their job. Now, four people can lose their job, but how each of them react will be different. Yeah, depending on their perspective. Yeah, and that completely changes the nature of the event. Yeah, the event is the same, which is loss of a job. But one person could view it as a release, maybe some release from bondage. Yeah, and they feel free to go on and do something different, pursue their heart's desire, pursue their passion. But for another person, yeah, they could feel like this is the end of the world, right? They could feel burdened by and overwhelmed by the idea of having to go out and look for another job. And it could drive them to drink, it could drive them to depression, right? All of this is very real. I truly know people who have gone through all of this, right, during the COVID, even before that, right, because of the economic situations, right? Companies were constantly restructuring. So it's not even the individual's fault, but just because of the situation and restructuring, people were losing jobs. People have lost jobs that they held on to for 30 years and 40 years. And because of that, they just don't know how to deal with it. So the same situation, but how each person deals with it depends on perspective. So the point here is that it is not the external event that determines whether we suffer or not. Yeah, ultimately, it is the way we view it, our eyes, the lens through which we view that experience. Yeah, and that is what the yoga practice and philosophy gives us. It gives us that enhanced perspective to view life. So the same situation, we deal with it in a very different manner. And also, when it comes to suffering, there's a very, very interesting story and very effective, which is why I just want to quickly share it. So it's about the Buddha, and people ask him, people still suffer, what is the point to all of these practices, right? So he says, it's the first arrow. Yeah, we cannot escape living in this life. We cannot escape suffering. Things will happen. Yeah, diseases, death, all of that is a part and parcel. It's the nature of life. Yeah, so all of that will happen. So that is suffering. That is the first arrow that is shot at us. But the way we react to that suffering, what happens is that in normal circumstances, when we are unconscious, we shoot another 100 arrows at ourselves. Yeah, so there is this first external arrow that is shot at us. And then that is followed by another 100 arrows. Yeah, so the suffering we have is increased 100-fold because of our reactivity to it. Yeah, and this is where the yoga practice comes in. Yeah, where we have the capacity to temper our reaction, to change the way in which we view the same situation. And there is that beautiful concept of pratipaksha bhavana. Yeah, which means we view it in an opposite manner. So opposite is a bit extreme, as in if we really hate someone, we can't suddenly turn around and love that person. Maybe not right away at least. But we can make allowances for them. We can expand the same situation, expand our perspective on it, try to see, give that person some chance, right? Why did they do it? Try to put ourselves in their shoes, try to think of their situation. So when we do that, then we move away from that one pointed hatred or one pointed negative reactivity that we have. Yeah, so Pratipaksha Bhavanam is a beautiful practice, again, which is given by Maharishi Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras. And that is about viewing any situation, even the worst situation that happens in our lives, with an expanded perspective. Yeah, so like the same mind that created it, we cannot change the way that we view it. Yeah, we have to elevate our minds. And we can elevate our minds by elevating our perspective, by expanding our perspective. So we go on to the kleshas, the topic for this evening. So this is connected to suffering, which is why I began with suffering. Why do we suffer, right? And one of the main reasons that we suffer is because of kleshas. Yeah, so these are defined as inborn psychological afflictions, yeah, mental afflictions. And we are born with these kleshas, and these kleshas eventually, they form like the lens, yeah, through which we view life. Yeah, so if we are, the general example given is that, if we are seeing through a red color lens, right, then everything we view is red. Yeah, or if you're viewing through a blue lens, then everything we view is blue. Yeah, so it distorts our perception of life. Yeah, so that we view life through that distorted perspective. So there are 5 kleshas that Maharshi Patanjali enumerates, and it begins with avidya. So I just named them here because I'm going to each one of them later. Yeah, so it's avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. Yeah, so the English translation, simple one-word translations are just given here. Avidya is delusion, and there is asmita as ego, and raga is attachment, dvesha is repulsion, abhinivesha is will to life or clinging to life. Right, so this is the same thing, but it is just giving you the hierarchy of these kleshas. Yeah, kleshas also have a hierarchy. Yeah, so it begins, everything begins. So avidya is called referred to as the mother klesha. Yeah, because it is avidya that begets all the other kleshas. Yeah, avidya is ignorance. Again, we are going to go into it later, so I'm not going to dwell so much on it. This is just the hierarchy. Yeah, so it begins, everything begins with avidya, which gives rise to asmita, the ego, and then the ego has its own likes and dislikes, raga and dvesha, and then there is the abhinivesha. So the root of karma. So this is again a very important and very interesting sutra, yeah, which says that like we know of klesha and karma, yeah, but they say the root of karma, yeah, is actually klesha. Yeah, so klesha mula karmashayo drishta adrishta janma vedaniya. So it says that the root of karma is klesha, and this is what results. Yeah, drishta, adrishta is seen and unseen. Yeah, but we know that we don't see everything. Yeah, with so much. And janma vedaniya, janma refers to the different, like we have all been here more than once. Yeah, we've all, incarnated more than once. So all the experiences, the painful experiences, vedaniya, yeah, it causes a lot of pain, and all of that is a result of klesha. Yeah, klesha begets, yeah, this karmic bondage, which results in seen and unseen experiences in different incarnations, which can be very painful. So if we wonder, right, why things happen in our life, right, we always blame, okay, it must be karma, right? So to understand that why karma is action, yeah, action that causes bondage. So why does this karma happen? Right? The root of that karma is that klesha. Yeah. And the fruits of karma. So this is all very interesting to know about, the fact that even how we are in this birth, yeah, is a result of all of this. Yeah. So sati mule tad vipako jatyayur bhogaha. Yeah. So jati, yeah, the species or the genus that we are born in. Yeah, so whether we are in this birth as a rat or a mosquito or a lizard or a snake or an evolved soul, right? All of that is determined by this. Our age, yeah, are you, our lifespan, whether we live 2 years, whether we live 50, whether we live 80, right? All of that is also determined by this. And also bhoga, the experiences that we will have in this lifetime is also determined by this. Yeah, so it's very fascinating to see how it influences our lives. Yeah, because these are all unanswered questions. Why do these things happen to us? Right? Why do I suffer though I think I've done only good? Right? Because we don't know. We can't see all our previous incarnations. We don't know all that we have done. Right? Our understanding and our knowledge is very limited. Yeah, we have to have that understanding that we know very little. Even 2 weeks back, what you had for lunch, if I ask, most of us, I myself won't remember. Yeah, so what we remember, what we know is all very limited. Though, of course, we have this very elevated idea of ourselves. Yeah, but we really have to become a bit humble, and we really have to know that we are a very, very limited, even our, they say even animals have the capacity to sense and perceive, much better than, human beings. So there is very little that we know, and there is very little we remember. And so we have to just understand this. This gives us the understanding, yeah, of why things happen. Why are we born? Why are some people born in a certain household? Why are some people born in certain circumstances? All of this is determined by this karma. Yeah, and then this is again a very, very fascinating understanding. So all of this is what keeps me so glued to the philosophy, yeah, because it's so amazing to understand all of this. So right, everybody says aham brahmasmi, right? We are all the divine, right? The divine is in us. So but we don't really feel like that, right? We feel very limited, and we feel really caught up in all our irritations and frustrations and everyday life. Yeah, so why is it that we don't feel like the divine, right? We are Ishvara. Why is it that we don't feel like Ishvara, right? Because of the klesha and the karma. Yeah, so this is actually Dr. Ananda's definition here, where he says Ishvara is the human being, right? Us, right? When the klesha and the karma are removed, then we regain our divine essence. Yeah, so what keeps us in this human bondage is klesha and karma. Yeah, so it's that important. Yeah, so it's so so amazing to know all of this and see how, right, we've all learned of these as disjointed words, right? We've heard of karma, and then now we hear of klesha, but how does it affect our lives? Yeah, and you can see that even the circumstances of our birth, the age of our birth, the experiences that we have, right, all of this goes back to klesha. Yeah, that is why it is such an important topic. So going on to the next one, this is the first klesha, right? We talked about this, the mother klesha, right? Avidya. And these actually a slide I sort of, at least part of it, I borrowed from Dr. Ananda. So it says the Panchaklesha model of Maharishi Patanjali clearly states the root of all suffering. Yeah, dukkha. We talked a lot about dukkha. The root of all suffering is avidya. Yeah, distorted perception of reality. We will go into this later when we delve into avidya. So now I'm just just going through the sutras, yeah, which deal with the kleshas. And then this is also very interesting, right? So if anybody asks you, do you have raga or do you have dvesha? Raga is deep attachment, dvesha is intense dislike. So we sometimes think we are really wonderful people, so we say no, I'm beyond all of this, right? I'm not afflicted by all of this. Only some lower human beings are afflicted by all of this. So here Maharishi Patanjali says that there are different levels of affliction. Yeah, so avidya manifests in dormant, attenuated, manifest, or overpowering forms. Yeah, so that is a beautiful sutra again. Avidya Kshetram Uttaresham Prasupta Tanu Vichinna Udarana. Yeah, so Prasupta is this totally seed dormant state. Yeah, Tanu is an attenuated state. Yeah, where it's really, really very, very mild. And then there is vichinna, where it is manifests, and then at some points it just goes off. And udaranam is the completely expressed state. Yeah, so when we have deep dislike for someone, that is a udaranam state. So it's very important to understand that we have all of this within us, though at this point in our lives, maybe when we are feeling very happy with ourselves, when we have a fat paycheck, or when we have no problems at this time, right? Maybe we feel like we are beyond. So abhinivesha stands for this deep clinging to life. Yeah, so we think, oh, we're beyond abhinivesha, we don't have all of this, right? You're willing to let go of life. But the minute your life gets threatened, the minute your life gets threatened, you will say hello to abhinivesha. Yeah, so that threat perception will awaken all of this. So even if right now life is comfortable and we don't feel anything, we must not fool ourselves into thinking that we are beyond all of this. Yeah, and then even when you come to raga and dvesha, right? So ragas also, when ragas express, so when one of it is expressed, the other, it's like a seesaw. Yeah, the other naturally goes into a very prasupta state, a very seed state. Yeah, so suppose you're in love with someone, right? All you can do is that see that person's good points, right? There's nothing, absolutely, the person is perfect. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that person, right? So then you say dvesha, right? The opposing emotion, dvesha, is in that prasupta seed state. Similarly, if you dislike someone, you hate someone, all you can see is bad things about them, right? Even if that person has 100 good qualities, we cannot perceive any of it, right? So then that dvesha is in a udaranam state, and that raga is in a very prasupta state. Yeah, so we have to know that it's not, that we are so elevated and we don't feel any of this. We just may not be provoked at this time into expressing that. Yeah, but to know that all of these are there within us, yeah, underlying. They're just in different states of expression. Yeah, but we have to always be watchful for it. Yeah, to know that they are ever present. So this is again my most favorite sutra, and this really goes into avidya. Yeah. So again, like I said, a very one word, definition was given of avidya earlier, which is usually is loosely translated as ignorance. Yeah. So it's not really like that. This is such an incisive definition of avidya. Yeah, where Maharishi Patanjali really understands the human nature. Yeah, and he, brings out, what is not quite right with that. So, avidya, ignorance, that is the loose translation, but it's actually not ignorance. Yeah, if it's ignorance, okay, you don't know something, then you just read up about it, right? Or you go, now everybody Googles, right? Google Guru. So you Google it, right? So then avidya is gone, right? But it's not like that, because it is not that we don't know, but it is even worse because we mistakenly know, right? If somebody doesn't know, it's easy to teach them, right? Because you just have to, or they can teach themselves also. But if we think we know, right, then it is very hard to know that, even to accept that what we know may not be right. Yeah, so I will go into the sutra, then you'll know exactly what I've been saying. Yeah, so this is a very beautiful sutra. It talks about four issues. Yeah, it says anitya asuchi dukkha anatmasu. Then it goes into the opposite, nitya suchi sukha atmakyatir avidya. Yeah, so anitya stands for permanence. Yeah, nitya stands for permanence, anitya stands for impermanence. Yeah, so we believe that everything is permanent. Yeah, so this is our problem, right? We believe things will be the same how they are right now. But if we look at nature, right, nature is constantly changing, right? One season ends, another season begins. One season ends, the other season begins. When you look at the trees, right, there is a seed, the seed grows, and then finally the fruits come, and then, at some point maybe the tree dies, right? There is a constant cycle that is going on. Nothing remains the same. Similarly, when we come to our bodies, right, we think, our bodies are going to be like this forever, but it's not, right? Our bodies are constantly changing, right? So there's all this theory, right? Every 7 years, like, in fact, our whole body, I think, is completely revamped. And then when we come to the breath, so nature is constantly teaching us through nature itself, like through the trees, through the environment, through our bodies and the breath, right? Can we hold on to the breath? No, we can't, right? The inhale begins, then the inhale flows, and the inhale ends. Similarly, the exhale begins, the exhale flows, and the exhale ends. Nothing remains the same. Everything is constantly changing. Impermanence is the nature of the universe. Yeah, and that is something we have to accept. But we live in this blind faith that everything would be the same. We'll always have this job, we'll always have this relationship, right? And then when things happen, we get completely bewildered, right? How could this happen? Right? How could I lose my job? How would this relationship end? Right? Not understanding that all of this is always suspect to change. Yeah, change can affect all of us at any point, every aspect of us, in fact. Then it comes to asuchi. Yeah, so suchi and asuchi. Yeah, so suchi is purity and asuchi is impure. So we mistake the impure for the pure. Yeah, so again, when we come to, we, like we said, we all have a very wonderful idea of ourselves, right? We say all our relationships are pure, all our intentions are pure, right? But if we delve into it deeply, right, any relationship, when we meet someone, right, all of this is really there, right? When we meet someone, what is it that we think, right? What can we get from this person, or what can we give from this person? More often than not, when we meet someone, or when we, are in touch with someone, we're always thinking about what we can get from that person. Maybe he can help me with my work. Maybe he can help me to advance my career. Maybe he can help me with something else, right? This all is there. We have to see it. Yeah. So that is why we have to understand that impurity lies within all of us, and it expresses through our thoughts, through our intentions, through our actions. Yeah. And then we go to dukkha and sukha, again opposing tendencies. Yeah. So whatever is actually suffering, we think of it as pleasure, right? So simple examples are like, you eat a sweet and you think that you're, in really great pleasure, but not understanding that dukkha is just round the corner. Yeah. That we are going to suffer because of bloating and weight gain and all of that. Yeah. So that's a very easy example, but we can understand it, how we mistake. Yeah. So this mistaking is the avidya. Yeah, we are always mistaking. We are mistaking the impermanent for the permanent, the impure for the pure, the sadness for the happiness. And then finally, they say the Atma and Anatma, the non-self for the self. Yeah, we don't understand that whatever we see, what we get attracted by in the world is all non-self. Yeah, but we just lose ourselves in it. So this is such a fascinating sutra, and it's so important because when we understand it, just understanding it itself reduces our suffering. Yeah. Then when things happen, when jobs end, when relationships end, when unexpected life doesn't go as planned, we are not surprised, or we are not shocked or caught on the back foot, right? We understand that this is the nature of life, anitya. Yeah. So just familiarizing ourselves with all of this. Then we go to the next one, which is asmita, or the ego, right? So we have this wrong perception. So avidya, we said, is the mother klesha. Now, if there was no avidya, the rest of the kleshas wouldn't happen. Yeah. So it is avidya, this is distorted perception of reality, that leads to asmita. Yeah. So it is like we believe that we are the perceiver, instead of understanding that we are simply the tool of perception. Yeah. So a simple example is, again, I'm borrowing Dr. Ananda's example, is a camera. Yeah. So we use a camera to take a picture, right? But the camera ends up thinking that it has taken the picture, not understanding that it is simply the tool of perception. So similarly with us, we are simply the tool of perception for the divine. Yeah, so I believe there's a very beautiful line, I think it's the opening line in the Purusha Suktam, yeah, where they talk about how the Ishvara actually perceives through 1,000 heads. Yeah, and these 1,000 heads are all of us. Yeah, Ayame Hastu Bhagwan. How does the divine work? He works through our hands. Yeah, and how does the divine see? He sees through our eyes. And how does the divine hears through our ears? Yeah, so we have to understand that we are simply a tool of perception for the divine, and we, in our ignorance, because of avidya, right, believe that we are the perceivers. Yeah. So this is again, like we said, this comes from, it's the child of avidya. Yeah. So this is that sutra that deals with, gives that example. Yeah, drig darshana shaktyor ekatmateva asmita. Yeah, so the ego arises from a misidentification with the tool of perception. Yeah, we are the tool of perception for Purusha, but we believe that we are the perceiver. And then raga and dvesha is very easy to understand. Yeah, because you can think also, right? What is wrong with raga, right? Raga is something, some deep love, deep attachment. But we have to know that actually that is the most dangerous thing, because this raga comes with this whole family of afflictions. Yeah, because from raga comes deep attachment, deep craving, possessiveness, obsessiveness, obsession, compulsion, what OCD, I think it's called, obsessive compulsive disorder. All of this stems from this raga, yeah, this deep attachment. So it can actually be a very dangerous thing. And in fact, raga and dvesha are like two sides of a coin. it is the same raga that has the potential to turn into dvesha. Right? So this whole, if you go into human relationships, like somebody that you deeply loved, if they don't respond to you the way that you want them to respond, that same raga becomes dvesha. Right? So world over, so many of the crimes, yeah, are because of dvesha. Right? People go around and kill the people that they profess to love just a while earlier. Right? So to understand how raga and dvesha are deeply connected, and to see that even something that on the surface looks like a good thing, I like something, that like is a very innocuous liking. Yeah, because at the depth of it comes all these other emotions which we don't see. Yeah, it's like that samskara, right? We just think, oh, I like this, so let me eat it. And before we know it, it becomes, oh, I have to have this every day. Yeah, and before we know it, it's taken over our life. Yeah, so I would say we have to be extra careful about what we think we like, because that can eventually be the reason for our downfall as well. Yeah, so a simple thing, again, all of these are things that I've actually seen in life, yeah, with people. A simple thing, just it seems very harmless, like liking good food. Okay, but eventually I have seen people who appreciate, good food with no control, then it becomes like it has affected their lives, and they have eventually lost their lives, yeah, through diabetes and then eventually a heart attack. Yeah, so it is so important to keep an eye on our ragas. Yeah, and then to know that that raga has the same potential to turn into a dvesha. So that ability to see, that is a yoga practice. Yeah, yoga is a darshanam practice. Yeah, so my teacher Manoj Kamal always talks about yoga as a darshanam practice, that capacity to see clearly. Yeah, otherwise we only see on the surface. Okay, I like this, and that's the end of it. But when we can see the insidious of all of this, yeah, when we can see that it is not just a simple liking, but it comes with a whole host of issues, right? Then we deal with it in a very different manner. And then the last klesha is abhinivesha. Yeah, so abhinivesha stands for, usually it's loosely translated as, that deep survival or self-preservation instinct. Yeah, the clinging for life. Yeah, in the sutras, they say that even wise people, yeah, even they are afflicted by this abhinivesha. It is so deeply ingrained in our psyche. Yeah, so the sutra goes, Swarasavahi vidushopi samarudo abhinivesha. Yeah, so the universal desire to survive is found in the most learned of humans. Yeah, so that's why I said we may think that we are beyond all of this, we have transcended all of this, till we come face to face with it. Yeah. So, and abhinivesha, while is like, fear of death, or, that clinging to life, it can also be seen in our everyday life. So death is not just death of a physical body. We can also see death in the change in life situations. So every day, if we see, or if we just look back on our lives, so many things have died, right? Friendships have died, relationships have died, jobs have died. There is death in so many ways in our lives. Yeah, it reflects change. And you can sense, right? We all can sense that inherent resistance to change. Yeah, so that is that abhinivesha klesha, right? Which wants things to continue as they are, which resists change in any manner, and which is happy with the status quo. Yeah, so when things happen in our life which force us to change, and we can sense that resistance, then if we have the knowledge, then we can see it, we can label it as abhinivesha. Okay, that's abhinivesha. Yeah, and then we have the capacity to deal with it and overcome it. Yeah, but if we don't, that's the advantage of knowledge. Yeah, it allows us to discriminate. Yeah, it allows us to see this for this, that for that. We're able to see clearly. It gives us clarity of vision. And when we have clarity, we're able to distinguish what is what, and then see how we can appropriately respond to it. If we don't have the awareness, then we just say, okay, I don't feel good about it, so I'm not going to do it. But then if we know that this is simply a klesha, and our destiny or our life is calling us to another path, then we have the strength, we find the strength within us to overcome that abhinivesha klesha and do what is called of us, yeah, to pursue our dharma. So that is where we can see abhinivesha in our everyday life. Yeah, so we all don't need to be confronted with physical death to come face to face with abhinivesha. Any change will bring this abhinivesha klesha to the forefront. So what do we do with all of this? So we went over the kleshas, the 5 kleshas: avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, right? And now we have the antidote as well. So Maharishi Patanjali is very kind. He doesn't just tell us what the problems are with our mind, he also gives us solutions. Yeah, what do we do? So the second chapter actually begins with this. Yeah, he says tapa, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana, kriya yoga. So these are the 3 steps that he gives us, or 3 principles. Yeah, the principle of tapa, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana, which is surrender to the universe or the divine. Yeah, so tapa stands for effort. Yeah, so self-discipline. So there are always many definitions. Yeah, so self-discipline, intense effort, burning effort. These are all the words associated with tapa. Yeah, and again, my teacher Manoj Kamal, he puts it very beautifully. He says the ultimate tapas that we need is that capacity to stand up to our samskaras. Yeah, so what are we trying to overcome? Right? We all have these, I don't want to say positive and negative, but samskaras that pull us down, yeah, which don't allow us to achieve our potential, right? We have sloth, we have procrastination, we have the ability to just not pursue anything, right? We just allow ourselves to be defeated. So we have all these negative tendencies within us. Yeah, and then that is where tapas comes in, that capacity to stand up to it. Yeah, and that is why it is called self discipline, because the work is internal. Yeah, we have to know, okay, the alarm rings, we just switch off the alarm and go off to sleep, though we had made the resolve to wake up and get to the gym. Yeah, that is just an example of our inability, right, to do what we actually know that we should be doing, right? And then we say, okay, every day I'm going to read the sutras, half an hour I give to the sutras, but then we have very bad time management skills maybe, and then we just end up with absolutely no time. So again, that is the tapas that we need to do what we need to do, right? That will take us on our dharma, which will elevate us, which will help us express our highest potential. Yeah, we know, we ourselves know, if we look into ourselves, we will know what is it that holds us back, what is it that prevents us from expressing our highest potential. And that is where tapas comes in to burn it up. Yeah, swadhyaya again is another very beautiful principle which encourages us to turn inward. Yeah, so Dr. Ananda actually calls it the yogic selfie. Yeah, where we train the camera on ourselves so that we take a good hard look at ourselves. Yeah, because from childhood we are only encouraged to look outward. Yeah, the whole gaze is outward, compete with other people, get into these schools, get a great job, jostle and shove and get everybody out of the way, right? It's always about other people. But here you are asked to look at yourself. Yeah, so it is like going into this dark room and switching on the light. Yeah, so we probably will see, yeah, a lot of cobwebs. But unless we see it, unless we put in the tapas to clear it, that room is never going to be clean. Yeah, and that room is only our own selves. Yeah, so we have to express purity. If we have to express saucha, cleanliness, right, internal cleanliness, then swadhyaya is essential. Yeah, so these are just the very, very important tools: tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana. Yeah, so ishvara pranidhana is that capacity to surrender, right? We're all in many ways control freaks. We believe that we can control everything, and then life hits us, and sometimes 2 plus 2, I always say, is not always 4. Yeah, so sometimes we can't understand why these things happen in a certain way. But if we can understand this concept of ishvara pranidhana, it's like bhakti yoga. Yeah, so it is having that deep faith in the working of the universe, even when we don't fully understand it. Yeah, so that is that capacity to surrender to the divine, to say, okay, in my limited, like I said earlier, we have a very limited understanding of ourselves, of our minds, of the things that we have done, of our intentions, and to know that the universe knows better. Yeah? So when things happen where it's not what we chose and we have difficulty and we struggle to accept it, that is where Ishvara Pranidhana comes in. Yeah? And we just surrender that situation to the higher self or to the grace of the divine, and we flow with life. That allows us to flow with life. Yeah. So what causes suffering is resistance to life, right? When people don't respond the way we want, when life events don't go the way we plan, we suffer. So Swadhyaya helps us to look within, identify all of this. Tapas helps us to put in that deep effort, that burning effort, that self-discipline that is required to do what is the right thing to do. And Ishvara Pranidhana will take us into that mode of acceptance where we can receive life as it flows. Yeah, and then the second sutra of the second chapter talks about the importance of kleshas. Yeah, so what kleshas do is it helps us to attenuate. Yeah, so samadhi bhavanartha klesha tanukarnatascha. So by practicing this kriya yoga, it attenuates the kleshas. Yeah, remember we talked about attenuating the different levels of the kleshas, prasupta, tanu, vichinna, udarana. Yeah, so tanu is attenuation, so it thins the kleshas. Yeah, where it is not so expressed and it doesn't trouble us and afflict us so deeply. Yeah, and that allows us to experience these samadhi bhavana, states of samadhi. Yeah, so these are all again the sutras dealing with antidote. Yeah, how else can we deal with the kleshas? So te pratiprasava heya sukshmaha. So earlier we learned this word that we were talking about, expanding our perspective, pratipaksha bhavana. Here is another term, pratiprasava, which means to go back to the source. Yeah, so as we can do that, then the klesha becomes very sukshmaha. Sukshma is subtle. Yeah, and then the other sutra says dhyana heyaya tad vrittaya. Yeah, so the vrittis also, which are all standing up and expressed, all of that can also be attenuated through dhyana, yeah, meditation. Yeah, so because when we meditate, then we and that object become one. Yeah, so then when we are no longer there, then we don't get caught up with the kleshas. Yeah, remember the kleshas start with avidya asmita, right? When that I is no longer there, then there is no more affliction. So that is why, and dhyanam is not just simply closing our eyes 20 minutes trying to concentrate on something, which is still dharana practice. Yeah, concentration. So dhyanam is a state that we can only hope to receive by cultivating that beautiful state of mind. Yeah, so all of this goes towards that. And the whole of yoga practice, like even yoga sutras, Maharishi Patanjali, all of that, the sutras take us towards this concept of viveka. Yeah, viveka is that discriminative wisdom. So Maharishi Patanjali gives us the Ashtanga Yoga, the eight limbs. Yeah, so it goes yamas, niyamas, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So these are the 8 limbs of yoga. So by understanding these 8 limbs of yoga, we have a broad-based understanding of yoga. Yeah, because otherwise today yoga, and it's not even asana, it's just some stretch. Yeah, that has become synonymous. Okay, so we can say asana, yoga and asana has become synonymous. Yeah, everybody thinks asana is only yoga. Right? There's nothing beyond it. Right? So to understand that asana is an integral limb of the yoga practice, but it is not the only limb. Similarly, even with meditation, there are so many misconceptions. Yeah, people will ask me, right, do you teach meditation or do you teach yoga? Like yoga and meditation are 2 separate practices, right? So to understand that, again, meditation is another limb. It's the 7th limb of Ashtanga Yoga. Yeah, so this gives us that very broad-based understanding of yoga. So I'm not going to go into all of this because each of this requires a whole session in itself. So this Ashtanga Yoga, what Maharishi Patanjali gives us, it leads to this sutra. Yeah, we were talking about Viveka, remember? So he says, what happens? So we practice these 8 limbs, right? Or whatever limbs that we can practice. what happens when we practice. Yeah, so he says yoga anga anusthanat ashuddhi sheye jnana deepti aviveka khyate. So again it comes back to viveka. Yeah, ashuddhi sheye. So ashuddhi is these impurities. Yeah, so this klesha also is a kind of ashuddhi. Yeah, ashuddhi sheye is weaken the impurities through the practice of systematic practice of these 8 limbs. The impurities get weakened. Yeah, and when the impurities get weakened, the light of knowledge, yeah, it shines bright. Yeah, so viveka is that capacity to discern, to discriminate what is what. Yeah, and that capacity is heightened, is sharpened when we practice these 8 limbs. So know that all of these practices are towards this viveka, right, to make the viveka shine bright. So we were talking earlier of Pratipaksha Bhavanam, so I don't want to go into this. So this is also one of the ways through which we can deal with negativity in our lives. Yeah, so this is the sutra that goes with it, Vitarka Bhadane Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Yeah, so when we have a negative situation, we apply the Pratipaksha Bhavanam. And then positive attitude. So again, Maharishi Patanjali gives us this beautiful sutra in the first chapter, which talks about these wonderful attitudes. How do we deal with people and situations? Yeah, so he says, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upekshanam, Sukha, Dukkha, Punya, Apunya, Vishayanam, Bhavanatas, Chitta, Prasadanam. Yeah, so for the mind stuff to retain its undisturbed calmness, Chitta, Prasadanam, this is how you deal. Yeah, so Maitri is friendliness. Yeah, so towards those who are happy, we maintain friendliness. So this seems like a very no-brainer. Yeah, what's the big deal about it? But actually, if you look at ourselves, when people are happy, we actually don't feel so happy towards them or friendly towards them. Yeah, because we all have these what they call the shatrupos as well. Yeah, the jealousy, we have envy, right? We have to acknowledge all of that. Yeah, so it's important to connect to these terms and to try to apply that in our lives, right? Friendliness towards those who are happy, and then compassion towards those who are unhappy is fairly easy to relate with, because we find it easier to express compassion when people are unhappy, yeah, than to express friendliness when people are happy. And then delight in the virtuous and disregard towards the wicked, apunya. Yeah, so yeah, so these are the difference. So we're just connecting to the qualities: maitri, which is friendliness; karuna, which is compassion; mudita is goodwill. Yeah, so we have that goodwill towards people who are doing virtuous deeds. We support them. Like now, if you're all on social media, right, we encourage them, we like their posts, or we share their posts, or simple ways, of expressing mudita and goodwill. And this is another beautiful term, upekshanam. Yeah, upekshanam actually stands for equanimity. Yeah, so equanimity is a very beautiful term. It's also quite related to, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about samatvam. Yeah, samatvam, the ability to be equipoised. Yeah, to not be completely tossed between the dualities and the polarities of life, the profit and the loss, the win and the lose, right? We're always tossed between all of this, and that ability to stay in the middle, to not lose our poise, right? That is that beautiful term, upekshanam. Yeah, so just connecting to all of these words is great in itself. And waves and the ocean, this is again a very beautiful theme. Yeah, all of this has inspired me along the path. So what happens with us is that we are like these waves. Yeah, so each wave comes to think that they are this individual existence, that they are the big cheese, and they forget that their true nature is that of the ocean. Yeah, so this is where I really love mantras. Yeah, so there is this beautiful mantra that I use with my students called the Soham mantra, which can also be like used as Hamsa. Yeah, I am that. Yeah, so when we, and the wave in the ocean is the usual example that I give also. So each time that wave rises, it's like us being born. Yeah, we say aham, yeah, or I am. Yeah, and then as the wave flows back into the ocean or crashes back into the ocean, right, it goes back to that universe from when it was, where it was born. Yeah, so in that manner we understand. Similarly, at the end of our lives too, we also merge back from where we came. Yeah, so we are not separate from the universal essence. Yeah, but we forget, And then we have the, like today, mental health is such a big issue, and that's my pet topic as well, right? So loneliness, feelings of being separated, feelings of unhappiness, feelings of being isolated, all of this is rampant. Yeah, and all of this is a huge issue, but that is because we think we are alone, and we think we are these separated individuals. But the power of the mantra is each time we repeat that mantra with this beautiful visualization of the wave in the ocean, right? We remind ourselves and we empower ourselves in the understanding that the waveness of the wave, or the waters of the wave, is not so separate from the waters of the ocean. Yeah, it is the same essence of the divine that flows through us, though because of the distortions by the kleshas, right, we don't sense our Ishwaraness. Yeah, so to have this intellectual understanding as well, and then through mantra chanting, through visualization, right, we feel empowered, and all of those other emotions, the loneliness, the feelings of separation, all of that will fall away, right? So the more connected we are, so we need practices. Yeah, so the more connected we are to these practices, the more we chant all of this, the more we read all of this, right, the more it keeps our minds in a good space. Yeah, so the self, or Atman, gradually comes to remember its true nature. Yeah, is that of the absolute reality. So I'm going to end with this. This is my last slide, and this is a very important slide. Yeah, so this again I borrowed from the Bhagavad Gita, though today my talk is on the Sutras, but this is such an important a key message. Yeah, because ultimately everything, we hold the power of our lives, of our conscious choices, through wielding power over our attention. Yeah, our attention is the key. Yeah, so even in the Bhagavad Gita, there is this verse. Yeah, this is I think 2.62. Yeah, dhyayato vishayam pumsaha sangas teshopajayate. Yeah, so we have to know that moment to moment, our attention is going somewhere. Yeah, and then whatever, like raga will slip in at some point, and then we get attached to that. And then when that attachment doesn't respond to us, there is dvesha. So here they call it like the kama. So raga is like kama, and then dvesha is krodha. Yeah, anger comes in. Yeah, so we have to see this, and we have to know that ultimately it is our responsibility where our attention goes. Yeah, and that is the power, I would say, of a yoga class, a good yoga class, a Manasa yoga class, which I teach and which I have learned from my teacher as well, Manoj Kaimal. Because the very first thing that we do when we come into class is to be able to observe our mind. Yeah, to take a step back and simply observe the mind in a very non-judgmental manner. Yeah, and that gives us the power to deal with our minds, right? To put some space between us and the thought, us and the emotion, and also skillfully work with it. Yeah, direct the attention to your feet, direct the attention to your breath, right? You're consciously, skillfully honing your capacity over your attention. Yeah, and that empowers us eventually to be able to choose what is it that we want to focus on, what is it that we want to get attached to, which will take us either towards peace or towards anger. Yeah, so with this I am going to close. So these are just my details here, but you can always get it from Vinay Chandraji later on. And yeah, so thank you so much again for allowing me to share my love for yoga, yoga philosophy, and just gratitude to everybody. Yeah, over to you, Vinayji.
Thank you, Shailaja ji. I think your love and fascination with the Yoga Sutras, Yoga philosophy was coming forth through your presentation, and I'm sure all of our friends and participants have enjoyed it and have learned a lot as to uh, connect with deeper aspects of psychology and yoga and see how relevant they are in day-to-day life. So thank you so much. In the interest of time, I'll keep the question and answer section very brief. Maybe I'll start with this question. What I was fascinated with your session during the Festival of Yoga is your ability to translate that theory into practice. Through practice, you were allowing the participants to experience some of those deeper concepts. So, in this light, like how do you see or how do you plan a class where you help your students to understand these kleshas through the practices? Any work, any experience that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, first, I really have to give the full credit to my teacher, yeah, Manoj Kaimal. It is he who I have seen who has really beautifully teaches every class with philosophy. Yeah, so again, it's just a flow, like I have been going to him, so it comes into me as well. So even like you just take simple, let's just take Raga and Klesha, yeah. So when we go into a position, okay, so a lot of people struggle with hamstring stretch, right? So suppose we are trying to go into Hanuman Asana, which is the full forward split. Okay, that is a very easy position. I always say it's very important that we meet with resistance on the mat. Yeah, so to me, mat is actually our life. Yeah, because the mind on the mat is not different from the mind in everyday life. So, but the mat practice time gives us that space to look at our minds. Yeah, so when we meet with resistance, yeah, so we see the raga in our absolute desire to achieve the shape, right? So that is a dream position for a lot of people to get that beautiful front split. So the raga is so deep that they will not even honor their bodies, right? They will push past the pain, past the discomfort, which is why if you look at yoga injuries, you'll find like tons and tons of yoga injuries. That is because we are not observing the yamas and niyamas, right? We are not going with ahimsa, we are not going with satya, right? Maybe you haven't been practicing for 2 years, and then you just come into class, but you see the person next to you in the split. So there must be a satya in your practice that okay, I have not been practicing, I've just come back, maybe the other person have been practicing regularly, but instead of that, because of that raga, yeah, that deep desire to achieve the shape, right, we push ourselves beyond our point. And then, like I said, we have to be very careful about our raga, because that is what will lead us to injury,
True.
right? And then dvesha. So dvesha also is very obvious in our practice, right? So there are some positions that we struggle with. Like for me, for instance, I am not very good with strength. My upper body strength is not so. So any strength position, I don't like it. I just prefer not to do it. So you will see that in my practice, when I practice at home, I will only do the things that I am very happy with, right? What is raga for me? What is easy for me? What is comfortable for me? So what is dvesha? What I don't like? What is very difficult for me? I don't do it. But actually, I should be paying more attention to that. And which is why you need to go to a teacher, because the teacher will put you through what is important for you and won't go on your raga or dvesha. So in
If you
fact,
were to bring in the solution element which you were referring to as tapaswadhyaya and Ishwara Pranidhana into this scene, how do you see that offering the solution?
all of that comes into the practice. So first, swadhyaya is to see all this, right? Most of us are oblivious, unconscious. We live life unconsciously, right? We don't even see all this. We are simply reacting continuously out of this. So all of this is going on and we are continuously reacting and not seeing it. So the need to see it is primary. That capacity to look within, right? To be able to objectively witness your thoughts. That is the key to yoga practice, where you can put some space where you witness your thoughts in a non judgmental, non condemnation, non justifiable manner. Simply witness. That is so important, because and we have to be brutally, it requires a lot of courage, because we see our shadows, right? So we see in ourselves that deep craving, we see in ourselves that intense dislike. We have to be honest with ourselves and see it, right? And we have to be able to shatter our image of being perfect human beings. Yeah, so like if we were perfect, we would not be here. We have to accept that. Yeah, so that ability to see our thoughts, the ability to see the dvesha, the raga, right? Putting in that, that's where swadhyaya comes in. And then the tapas element comes in to restrain. So tapas is not just doing, tapas is also restraining.
Hmm.
Tapas also comes in that restraint. So sometimes people will say, oh, going to the gym is a great thing. But then if you're going to go to the gym when you're sick and you don't listen to your body is completely exhausted. But just because you are on that samskara, right? Like all samskaras are not good. Some samskaras take us down. But because we can't get off that, what they call hamster wheel, and we just have to get ourselves to the gym, we could be injuring ourselves. So then the tapas is not in getting to the gym. The tapas is in not going to the gym, to restrain ourselves, to honor our bodies, to have ahimsa, to have satya, So it's so important, but the seeing is the key. Yoga practice comes down to the darshanam practice, the ability to see. Then only tapas can come in, everything else can come in. Yeah, so that capacity to witness our mind objectively, like, the great Swami Shankaracharya says, right? We are not our mind. So that somehow we don't get. If people will say we are not the body, that also people can accept. But somehow we and the mind become one. But we are not the mind, and that we are not the mind understanding comes in when we can look at the mind objectively.
Thank you, Shailaja. I think this beautifully ties up. So it's not only the problems that we are left with, but there are also efficient solutions, and they have been given by Patanjali, and even by the way of practice, it only ensures, or it only assures us that there is a way out of it. I think that was very well brought about in your presentation. I
I
just
just only feel sorry, but I just want to add this, that our scriptures actually hold the key to everything. Whether it is the Bhagavad Gita, whether it is the Yoga Sutras, they have so much philosophy that can help us through every life situation. The problem is that it is not disseminated to the common man. Right? Me myself, I grew up in India, but I had no awareness of this. Right, so it is only much later in life I searched myself and I found it, and so through some grace or lots of grace, I got some, I really found solace in all of these teachings. So that I feel like people will ask me, oh, do you listen to this person or do you listen to that person? I say I don't need to do that, because to me the sutras and the Bhagavad Gita have everything. We don't really
mm,
need to go out so much. But when we don't have this knowledge, that is when we are seeking from random people.
true. So thank you very much. Maybe there are a couple of questions. I just want to pose them quickly. One is like each teacher would be influenced or by inspired by a particular book or a translation of Yoga Sutra. Is there any particular book that you have liked and which you would want to recommend for our participants here?
Yeah, so there are many, like you say, many translations of it. So my teacher Manoj Kamal himself has written a book, the first chapter alone, called "Making Patanjali Palatable," which I use as a reference. Then there's also Swami Sachidananda's book, which I use a lot. I think, yeah, the by him, that is also very very Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I think that's what the title is. And also Dr. Ananda has brought out a book some time ago. I think it is Yoga Darshanam. Sorry, I don't have the exact title,
Okay.
but I think it's Understanding the Yoga Darshanam, I think,
This
of
is
Maharishi.
by Dr. Ananda Balayogi Bhavanani.
Correct, correct. So these are the three books that I generally refer, but I love books. So like I said in the beginning, they were the ones, the stepping stones. I have Desikacharji, his book. I have, which is The Heart of Yoga, which has the Yoga Sutras in it. I have B.K. Iyengar's Yoga Sutra book as well. But yeah.
I mean, I think that's important to note that each book brings about a fresh perspective and
Correct,
they
correct,
might add value from a
correct.
completely different dimension. And that's where it will be more holistic to have various sources. Of course, there could be one central anchoring resource, but bringing in more books, I think they are generally helpful.
I think this also ties in with different styles of yoga and all
True.
of that, right? So
Yeah.
the idea is to just have an open mind, right?
Yeah.
So we get very stuck to see all of that, right? How we say only our way or the highway, our style is the best style, right? It has all become competition. So to have an open mind, every perspective, every style has a perspective, to be open, and we can understand that perspective only if we are open to it.
So thank you very much, Shailajaji. All our participants are appreciative of what they got today and they want to connect with you and know your contact details. So if you can just put the last slide once again.
Yeah, so basically, Shailaja Menon is like keywords that's there for my Instagram, that's there for my YouTube channel, it's there on my Facebook. Yeah, so Matt and Beyond is my studio name, and that is there for my email as well as my website.
So thank you. And I also want to express our gratitude to all our participants who have joined us on a weekend evening. It's a Friday evening. I'm sure that you'd be looking to go out or do something, but yet you choose this because you value this wisdom much more than anything else. So we are extremely grateful. This is the purpose, to build a community of seekers. And we will continue this journey through various sessions of Yoga Insights every Friday. But there are other offerings too, as I had mentioned earlier. So please stay connected with us through Indica Yoga website, that is indicayoga.com, and then Indica Yoga Facebook page and Indica Yoga YouTube page as well. So all these are the channels through which we reach out to all our friends and communities across the globe. All these sessions are also made available on these channels. So kindly make use of all the resources here and stay connected with us and be an active contributors towards this collective journey that we all have undertaken. So thank you very much. Thank you, Shailaja ji. Thank you, Datta Prasad. Thank you, Srinivas ji, and all our friends here. Namaste. Good evening or good morning from whichever part of the world you are. Namaste.